Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I want to start off by saying sorry for my unexpected absence. I work full-time at this t-shirt printing company, and busy season started a while back, so every time I come home from work I was just extremely exhausted and was completely unmotivated as a result. I was still working on this video. I was just being really slow with it, just so I wouldn't feel completely burnt out or, crash out about it. As of right now, it seems to be dying down, but I don't want to jinx myself and be swamped with more work. Nevertheless, I feel rejuvenated and I'm ready to get back into the grind. In today's video, since it's been a while, I wanted to do another character design video where I turn a certain subject like objects, themes, and whatnot into characters. This time I decided to turn the 5 colors of Magic the Gathering into magical girls. Despite my condition from my job, I've recently been playing a lot of Magic, especially Commander. A while back, I've created my own Commander deck with the beautiful Olivia, the Crimson Bride, where I bring back my vampires from the graveyard and do damage to my opponents. I'm pretty proud of it, not gonna lie. As a result of my addiction to playing Magic, I thought creating characters based off of the colors would be a pretty fun idea. On top of that, I wanted to try something different from my usual style and draw them as magical girls, so I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to do so. Now, I'm aware that there are characters in Magic lore that are the faces of those colors, such as Sandra for red and Johnny for white. Originally, I thought about turning those characters into magical girls, but I prefer creating original characters. If you guys think I should do that idea in a separate video, do let me know down in the comments. As usual with my character design videos, this is going to be another 2-part video. The first part I will be drawing red, blue, and green in that order, and then for the second part it'll be white and black. Since there are 5 colors total, the video will be extremely long if I were to do all 5 at once, so I decided to go with the video having 2 parts. And with that, let's go ahead and get started with the video. Before I get into the character and drawing process, I wanted to give a brief description on what each of the colors represent and playstyle. Fair warning, I am not an expert when it comes to this card game. I have a pretty simple understanding, but do let me know if I get it wrong or you guys can expand on it. Just be nice about it though. So red is all about chaos and aggression, so it's all about doing direct damage to players and burning spells to overwhelm them. Blue is all about knowledge and control, so building up a lot of mana to use spells and disrupt enemy plays. Green is nature and growth, so it's all about putting up monsters on the board and giving them counters, which are these power-ups to their attacks and defenses, to intimidate their opponents. White is order and protection, so it does pretty good with defense, utilizing those onto their monsters. Finally, black is power and sacrifice, so it's all about having removal spells against opponents and bringing back monsters from the graveyard. Now that's out of the way and provide a bit of context, let's finally get into the character design. First up in my order is red. Like I mentioned before, this color is all about being aggressive and doing lots of damage to the enemy. Instantly, I knew I wanted this character to have that spunkness and very high energy. Since a lot of magical girl animes are in a high school setting, I'm gonna have the setting be that. She would be considered a delinquent in her school. She is someone that nobody should mess with unless you want to end up with a black eye or broken bones. She definitely steers away from quote-unquote normal society standards in terms of etiquette, personality, and fashion. I envisioned her dressed up in a punk biker style where she's all about leather jackets, metal studs and spikes, chains, piercings, I mean the whole package. Honestly, at first glance, no one would have thought this girl would be part of a magical group. The only reason why she would accept being a magical girl that I can think of is the giant hammer. If she's given the thumbs up to wreak havoc with that bad boy, she'll she'll be okay wearing the whole cutesy getup. Red is all about being in the front line, charging in like a bull. I think with her, because she loves to be aggressive, the more damage she endears from enemies, the more powerful her attacks will become. Her hammer would start to glow, which will determine on how much damage she had endured and how strong her attacks will be. And when it gets to like max, it just burns kind of like the sun. And then Red gets extremely revved up with adrenaline, and that's when she wreaks havoc on her enemies. Another detail that I just thought about now while writing this script, I just imagine like the back of her hammer would like open up and be used as like a boost for her to move around quickly, and can be used for the momentum for like a harder impact. Kind of like a like, remember like when rockets like take off, there's like fire like coming out at the bottom end to give them that boost to go up into space. That's basically what I'm trying to say. I think that would be pretty badass for her to have as a weapon. As far as her personality goes, she obviously has a very tough and intimidating face. Being a delinquent in her high school who often gets in trouble by the school faculty, a lot of her peers don't really want to associate themselves with her. I'd imagine that a lot of students would talk crap behind her back, and whenever Red confronts them, they would immediately shut their mouths and walk away. Despite being feared in school or hated, Red does have close friends. To her, friendships are very important to her. She's like a protective older sister who will fight anyone who tries to pick on their younger siblings, though she picks on the younger siblings. Kind of like, hey, I'm the only one who gets to mess with my younger sisters and brothers and not you type of aura, type of attitude. She remains extremely loyal to them and would do anything for them. If you guys are familiar with Magic Girl animes, there's usually a reason for why a character is chosen to become one. In this instance, I would say Red's fiery passion and strong loyalty would probably be the reason why. Now the outfits. When I got into sketching, I didn't realize how much of a struggle this was going to be for me. Magical Girl's outfit tends to be extremely girly with bright colors and adorable accessories to match with from all of the research I've done. If you've seen my works, I'm somewhat the opposite. I mean, I've drawn cute stuff like the Queen's video, but not to the level cutesy like Magical Girls, which honestly kind of overwhelmed me, not gonna lie. I wasn't sure how to go about with Magical Girls in terms of having there be a unison and accomplish that criteria. Like, how can I incorporate this into my style? Is it girly enough? How can I make them feel like a team but still have their own, show their personality more and not be, you know, the same? Or should they have their own separate thing? I was definitely overthinking this, so I took a short break before getting back into it. And during my break, I remembered that League of Legends had their own rendition of Magical Girls called the Star Guardians. What I liked about their design is that it's not so much childish like Tokyo Mew Mew and Mermaid Melody. It feels a bit more mature, if that makes any sense. It definitely has that Sailor Moon inspiration behind it, and it makes sense because that anime is like the face for Magical Girl, or at least whenever someone hears that title, Sailor Moon pops up majority of the time. And with that in mind, I decided to use Star Guardian and Sailor Moon as sort of my inspiration for my characters, just so that you guys have some context on where I got my ideas from. Anyways, back to the character. Since Red was the first character I drew in this lineup, I had to do some experimenting with the outfit. And because of that, she's gonna look pretty simple when I put her together with the other two Magical Girls later in this video, unfortunately. Originally, I wanted to give her a long trench coat with the skirt being made out of fire, and she would be wearing like tight shorts and ripped tights. Though when I looked at her and had a second pair of eyes to glance at her as well, it started to dawn on me that it didn't really capture the whole Magical Girl aesthetic. So I decided against it and went ahead and changed it. Since I wanted these girls to be a team, I needed them to have some sort of uniform with each other, but still have their own flair. That was when I chose the outfit you are seeing now. I for sure was inspired by Sailor Moon, where they all have like the same school-esque top, the bow, the gloves, and the skirt. So I sort of did the same thing, except I tried to give each girl's their different styles of skirts, gloves, and accessories. And of course, to show off their personality and what they represent, I had to give her a pose that shows her spunkiness and confidence. And I'm gonna be very honest, I'm pretty proud of myself with this pose. I'm sure there are mistakes with it, but overall, I'm very happy with it, and it looked exactly how I wanted her to look. I also like the hair I chose for her, especially since I'm trying to make her be that delinquent type who separates herself from social norms. I knew she had to have short hair because it's typical for girls to have longer hair, and many believed it to be more feminine that way. But for her, since she went with the opposite, I feel like she should have that style. I feel like I should have given her a shaved side to really hone in that rebellious side, but I decided to make it clip back as if it were shaved. And the other detail that I just couldn't leave out because I really liked the trench coat idea, I gave her a long skirt in the back that looks like fire. I thought it was a cool idea, especially when she does like her cool moves with the hammer. It kind of looks like fire is coming out of her, like a rocket or like a jetpack. It might not be that exciting, but I thought I find it to be, with all things considered. If there were any improvements or changes to this design, I would really love to add more accessories. I'd like to add more piercings and metal studs to be more specific, just so that I can give her the rebellious look. I think the hammer is way too simple looks wise. I'm not sure what I can do to make it better. Maybe just add some metal details. I'm not quite sure. I think if the hammer is facing in a certain angle where the flat part or the face of the hammer, I'm not quite sure how to call it. I'll most likely put like the red fire symbol or some sort of design on there that represent her. And personally, I believe if the hammer is angled differently, it wouldn't look as simple. I also thought about adding a spike at the other end of the hammer originally, but I decided not to do that and went with what I drew in the final version. But yeah, as far as colors go, I didn't want it to be entirely red because I think it wouldn't be as interesting to look at. I obviously went with the warmer colors like orange and yellow and reds just to stick with like the fire theme. I personally really like the hair because it loosely looked like there's like a gradient going on from like red to orange. And the last thing I'll mention about the outfits are the shoes. I think they're pretty fun. They kind of remind me of a pair of Nike shoes that my husband used to have, where it has kind of like a skeleton reaper figure, and then there's like fire in the background. I thought it was pretty cool, not gonna lie. I'm honestly debating whether or not I should redesign her because, like I said, she's way too simple in comparison to the others. There's a high chance I will, now that I have a better understanding on how I want her to look like. Next up on the roster is blue, the color that's all about knowledge and control. I knew I wanted this character to fall under the magic caster rather than a melee fighter of sorts. In an anime high school setting, she would be the student council president or Little Miss Perfect. Unlike Red, who is the complete opposite of her, the whole school loves Blue because of how well behaved she is and being absolutely perfect. Like, she's just stunning in every way to their eyes. She gets straight A's, she solves her peers' problems when they seek her out, and she shows really good leadership as the student president. Blue believes that she is someone with potential, though not in a self-centered kind of way, I guess. In a way, like, not just herself, she strongly believes that everyone around her carries great potential within themselves, and she decides to be the figure that encourages that growth. She embraces change as long as it goes within a logical and methodical way of doing it. So she's very open to the idea of, like, technology, for example. And I believe that's the reason why she got chosen to be a magical girl, because of that sort of motivation of growth within everybody. Despite having the desire of potential, I would say she's definitely more towards like realistically and has a little sentimentally. Like, she has no sentiment. That's why blue and red tend to butt heads a lot because of how much of a polar opposite they are. Red has a very chaotic nature, whereas blue feels more grounded. there would be heated disagreements with one another, which sometimes put their team in jeopardy and potentially lose a winning fight. However, no matter how different they are, Blue and Red always find a way to understand each other, even if it almost seems impossible. Blue will be there to rein in Red whenever she acts out, and Red will be there to help Blue loosen up a bit to have fun. The whole schools, like the students and teachers, were quite shocked to see how close Blue and Red are. And like any typical situation like that, they would express worry that Red would do something to Blue and just like slowly corrupt her, make her a bad student like her. However, Blue, despite the understanding that they're the opposites, would always refute and say that no matter how outrageous it is to be friends with her, she's still her best friend and she still loves her like a sister, so nothing will ever steer her away from that. Like I mentioned before, I wanted Blue to be the spellcaster, so she's all about being in the back lines and dealing damage that way. I'd imagine whenever she casts her spells, like a ball of water would emanate in the center of the staff, and depending on the spell she does, it'll either be like water shooting out for damage or like mist as some sort of like evasion to block away enemy visions and can act as a way to escape them, kind of like that. Now for the design, I stuck with the same theme where she has like the white top with the water symbol in the center, the skirt and the gloves. However, for her design, I wanted to give her like a longer skirt because I thought it was typical for student president to have long skirts because it has sort of like that sophistication, I guess. I mean, I don't know where I got that knowledge from. I mean, from all the animes I've seen with characters like her, I just thought it was typical. And honestly, I could be wrong and just pulling it out of my butt or whatever. I don't know. Anyways, I went with her having long hair as well, just to show off some elegance, along with gloves that kind of reminds me of like those princess gloves with like the ruffles at the end. And because her skirt is so long, I knew that boots or high knee socks wouldn't really work because you don't see it. So as a result, I decided to give her like simple heels with some like pearls on there. I wasn't sure if I should give her pantyhose or not. I ended up filling it in to make it look like she was wearing pantyhose, but I'm now not too sure about it anymore. I kind of want to remove that. The one thing that I love about this design is like that water scarf thing. I don't draw water that often, and this was purely experimental. Rather than scrolling through tutorials and wasting more time, I decided to just go for it and hoped for the best. I went with a messily colored in dark blue to give it that depth, and then I started drawing like random squiggly lines and erased some parts to make it look more natural and more watery, I guess. I think it gives off that watery look, and then I changed the layer to like linear dodge so it looks opaque and stands out. I'm honestly very happy with how it looks, especially since I trusted the process and kept going without having a crash out. And the reason why I wanted her to give this water scarf is because after I gave Red that fire-like skirt on the back, I thought about giving each character something that represents their color element and also gives them like their own flair to their outfits that makes them stand out. Thus, the water scarf was created, and it was the first thing that popped into my mind while designing her. I originally thought about giving her like a mermaid vibe. I mean, there are mermaids in Magic the Gathering, hence why I had the idea. I added pearls to sort of give that vibe, but it ended up looking more like Regency than a mermaid, so there's that. The one thing in regards to the pearls, like the beads that are attached to her skirt, like the gold part, those were originally supposed to be pearls, but then I decided to change them to like golden beading instead. I honestly regret doing that. I wanted to give some unity to the design, but now I think it would have looked better if they were like the pearly colors, you know? I believe around this time where I started to feel pretty burnt out with this design, especially since it was around the time where work became kind of stressful. Not kind of, very stressful. I'm not a big fan at the fact that I went with a mono blue color palette. I wish I could have added more cooler tones, possibly some greens as accents, but then I would would have been pretty worried about steering away from like the water theme. I'm not sure. I didn't really have a good clear mind for this design. Then again, I did took a lot of breaks to ease my burnout, but even then, it didn't really do much. In the end, I decided to go with the flow and just see where it leads me. I also feel like I could have done more with the staff, maybe adding some filigree on like the staff, like the white part, so it wouldn't be too plain. And I could have added some sort of like water object in the center. I actually thought about adding the blue symbol, which is that water droplet on her chest, to the center, but I didn't do it and just kept it empty. Overall, I definitely had the same sentiment as Red, where I should have added some more appropriate details to her design. Nevertheless, I still like the direction I was going with her, and if I were to redesign her, I would probably keep most of the details and just do minor changes, that like probably the ones that I've mentioned. And finally, on the last of my roster is green, the color that's all about nature and growth. For this character design, I definitely had a clearer mind while designing her, and I'll be honest, she became probably my favorite out of the three. From the research I've done about green, it says it favors for changes to be more natural and often be pacifist to avoid any like external conflict. However, if it's being provoked or threatened in any way, then it responds in a more like predatory like aggression as part of like their instinct. When I read that, I immediately jumped on that idea. To make it even more interesting, I didn't really see any magical girls that have this. Do let me know if there are. I probably didn't notice, or I just didn't know. But I wanted her hands to be the weapon of choice. I thought that if I wanted her to be a pacifist and be more on the defense side, I figured it would be appropriate. I feel like it would be appropriate for her hands to be just that. She can easily push people away if the enemies get too close, or simply block them with her shocking strength. I then thought about giving her a staff, but I didn't go for it and just went with the gloves, because I think, like I said, I don't see many magical girls with just their gloves, like their hands being their weapons, so I just wanted to like keep that, you know. She always has this smile on her face that gives off that friendly aura around her, and her eyes are always closed. You know those anime characters that always have like their eyes closed but can somehow still see what's in front of them? And then, you know, when shit gets real, if their eyes are like open and kind of like have like that cat eye shape slink, like it's very serious looking. That's basically what she is. She always has this approachable front to her that makes people feel comfortable and safe, but the moment that something happens that made her snap, I imagine her taking off her glasses and her eyes just open with this sinister and serious look on her face. I picture it as like an aggressive bear who's just ready to maul someone to death. I mean, green hits like a truck despite her size. Not even red wants to mess with her. In certain scenarios where you have like red and blue like butting heads and bickering all the time, green will be there to instigate. Will be there to like intervene and just instantly just end the childish fights. For her personality, like I said before, she's usually pretty calm and collected with a friendly smile on her face. It's honestly pretty hard to get mad at her whenever she does something wrong, though not to the extent of like the extremes, meaning it like if she steals something, of course the person that she stole from would be pissed at her regardless of like this friendly smile she always has. She's always been pretty gentle with her peers and oftentimes offer help whenever she can. I honestly envision her to be like Hinata from Naruto, like the grown-up version. She speaks very softly and is always kind to you, but if you try to push her buttons or do anything to just irritate her or provoke her, she gives off that angry mama bear aura to the point where you should really consider your actions. To differentiate between blue and green in regards to growth, blue is all about growth through changes, such as technology, whereas green on the other hand prefers growth to be more natural, like how it's intended. She doesn't share the same views as blue in that regard and often disagrees with her, but she keeps her opinions to herself to prevent any sort of conflict. Oftentimes green will usually tend to her plants, basically like her own botanical garden. I think the high school that the girls attend to has its own garden, so green will most of the time be spotted there. And that's why she got chosen to be a magic girl, because she just has a strong connection with the world naturally and harmoniously. Now, for her design, I had to give her flowers. I mean, it's an absolute must for her. To really complement that green color palette, I gave her pink flowers on her hair, the top, and the golden accessories on her skirt. I didn't want to go for the mono green colors for her like how I did with blue, which I honestly regret a lot. And I thought like showing off a plant girl like this would be really cute. In order for me to give her, I guess, an innocent and friendly look to her, I gave her a pair of braided hair and a pair of glasses. And to make her even cuter, I gave her freckles. I've always wanted to give a character freckles, but I either forget to do so or just believed it would fit with whatever design I was going for. Now I finally had the opportunity to do so. As far as her clothing went, I wanted to give off a bit of cottagecore. I mean, I feel like that's kind of a given if the character is all about nature, and also a bit of fairy. Thus, I gave her like a pair of fairy wings, since there are fairy decks in Magic the Gathering. With her skirt, I tried adding some sort of lace at the ends, though it's not really lacing to be honest, and a sheer fabric over it, which I got inspired by Blue's skirt. It's honestly pretty deceptive because it would give her enemies this idea that she is dainty and an easy target to start off with, but oh no, that would be their biggest mistake. On her gloves, there's like an orb that basically helps her manifest her powers, like shields or any sort of protective barrier that can either summon on herself or give it off to her friends. When it comes to her offensive side, I imagine it would take the shape of any kind of animal, like for example, like paws from a bear or talons from a bird. Something like that. And with that, here are my magical girls based off of the Magic the Gathering colors. This was definitely a challenge, but a very fun one at that. What a better way to get back into drawing by doing something that you don't do at all. There was a lot of experimenting with this one just so I can get the right theme to make them feel like a team. There are details that I would like to change that I'm not exactly too happy about, but I overall love them all and had so much fun. If you made it this far, thank you guys so much for watching, and again, I'm sorry for the long hiatus. Working full-time really does drain me, but I'm for sure back and ready to get back into the grind. I can't wait for you guys to see part 2. I'm actually pretty excited to get started on the whites and blacks designs. If you guys don't want to miss out on that and want to support my channel, please make sure you click on the subscribe button and hit that bell for notification so you won't miss my upcoming video. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye bye!